And if I'll say it one more time, if anyone's trying to remember, it's no matter how worthy and wonderful you are, you will be treated as ordinary, invisible, even disposable in the wrong place. Don't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree.
Today, we are joined by a very, very special guest, Ryan Stygar, or you might know him as Attorney Ryan. Meet Ryan Stygar, an ex-firefighter turned workers' rights attorney. As a California firefighter, Ryan braved the flames on a medic engine, battled wildland fires, and served on a desert rescue squad. Today, he uses that same fearlessness to fight for workers experiencing wage theft, harassment, discrimination, and wrongful termination. Ryan founded the Centurion Trial Attorneys, a firm that's helped thousands of, quote, little guys and recovered millions. In addition to being a full-time lawyer, Ryan also creates content for his 2.3 million followers across YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Ryan hosts the Working Class podcast, has been featured in HuffPost and the New York Times, and even appeared on the Dr. Phil show. Despite his busy schedule, Ryan still finds time for his Star Wars marathons, petting any dog he can find, cheering on the LA Kings, and exploring his newfound love for paintball.
Yes.
Welcome, Ryan.
It's so good to be here. Thank you.
How are you feeling today?
I'm so excited just to be exploring New York City. I haven't been here since I was 13 years old.
Oh my gosh.
I was so young and I had no concept of where I was or what I was doing. And I really appreciate it now. It is so fun.
Yay. And now you're here as a big kid.
Being a big kid is fun because I get to go wherever I want. And
have whatever dessert you want.
Yes. I already had ice cream out here.
Good for you.
Yeah.
What kind? We're talking gelato?
We went to a gelato place and I had like the 75% cacao, the like really chocolatey stuff.
Okay, so before we get started, I do have to ask you the preliminary question.
I'm ready.
And if you answer wrong, you do have to leave.
I accept these consequences.
Okay. The question is, do you know what you're doing?
Erin, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I don't know how it's worked out at all at this point.
Okay, you passed. You're qualified to be on the show.
That's lovely. Oh, so happy.
We can proceed.
Good.
Okay, so we're going to start with a little rapid fire rounds that we can get to know Ryan as a human being, and a little bit about your background.
Okay.
Okay, so the first question is, where did you grow up?
Born and raised San Diego, California, America's finest city.
Really?
Yes.
Born and raised?
I'm so lucky. I don't know how I won the lottery. I mean, look, San Diego, it's got its problems. We've got more potholes than people. It's expensive, but man, it is the most gorgeous city.
Yeah.
With gorgeous people.
Yeah.
I love San Diego. I love San Diegans. I don't think I'm going to leave, to be honest.
I've never heard a bad thing about San Diego. I'm going to be honest.
No.
Never.
And our tacos are top tier. There's apparently there's this rivalry between us and Los Angeles, but is it really a rivalry if you don't think about the other team? Our tacos are elite.
Ooh, that was a burn, and I'm here for it.
We're coming out swinging right in the beginning.
I'm picturing you, like, have you ever seen Rocket Power?
Yes.
Yeah.
The skating, and they do like snow. They did extreme sports.
They did both. That's what I'm picturing you as, like a little San Diego. Did you skateboard?
I did not skateboard, but I surfed.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
surfing.
I surfed. That was actually one of my favorite memories back when I was firefighting. When I was done with shifts, it was just a goofy little board. I was not good. I was not good at surfing. I want to be clear about that. But I'd go from the station and I'd go surf in Encinitas, like in the morning, and then pack up the surfboard, grab some tacos, go home, shower, and then go hang out with friends. It was really good times.
Oh, that just sounds like perfect.
It's like a movie version of what people think Southern Californians do.
Okay, next question is, what did your parent or parents do for a living growing up?
Great question. So I have two sets of parents because there was a divorce when I was very young. My dad is a dentist. He has a small office in San Marcos. Cool. Rancho Palomar Family Dental. I'm going to throw in a quick plug. Go see my dad. If your tooth hurts, give my dad a call. Mom was a homemaker.
Okay.
But then, they divorced, got remarried, and my stepdad is a salesman.
Cool.
He was a VP of sales at this manufacturing company, and actually learned a lot about storytelling and connecting with people from him. So, cool. Mark, if you're listening, you may not realize it, but you were great training for law.
Seriously.
Yeah, seriously.
Honestly.
If you know how to sell, you know how to litigate.
If you know how to sell, you can do anything. I always tell people it's the most important skill that you can learn.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. Just be able to convince somebody to do something that you want them to do. I think
just
that's
the power
just
of persuasion.
And manipulation.
Manipulation. It sounds so dark.
when it gets down to it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And then did you go to college? And if so, what did you study?
I did go to college. And for anyone listening who's struggling with college, I want you to hear this. I dropped out.
Okay.
So I went to UC Santa Barbara, Gauchos, big party
Very
school.
nice.
I did a year and a half, and then I dropped out my second year.
Okay.
And apparently you're supposed to do some paperwork or tell someone. I just didn't show up to finals. So if you look at my transcript from college, there's a semester in there where it's just straight Fs.
Really?
It's pretty
And
bad.
you paid for it?
Oh, yeah. No, I was not smart at 20 years old. But, well, the reason was I wanted to be a firefighter so bad.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted. And I was right across the street from Santa Barbara County Station 11, and I would see the trucks go every day.
So you're not a family, like, career firefighter. You were the first person in your family?
My cousins and my uncles
Okay.
were firefighters,
Okay.
but in my core family, I was the first.
Got it. Okay. Because
Yeah.
usually I feel like with firefighters, it's like, oh, my dad, my uncle, my brothers.
My uncle did it. I actually have some cool pictures of me when I was 4 years old. My parents threw me a firefighter-themed birthday party, and we had a fire truck pinata, and there's me, 4 years old, with a little plastic hat.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I got a present, and it was a little baby, like, turnout coat, like fire turnout coat. And I remember being a kid, I would practice like I was going to a fire, and I'd put it on as fast as I could and
so
go play
cute.
with the garden hose. But yeah, I dropped out of college, pursued my dream as a firefighter. And then we'll talk about this later. When I transitioned back to law school, I had to finish. So I went back to Santa Barbara for 1 year to finish that degree.
Finish your bachelor's?
I had to finish my bachelor's and then
Okay.
take the LSAT. Yeah.
What was your bachelor's in?
Philosophy with an emphasis in public policy.
Interesting.
Yeah. And a lot of
Okay.
people think, oh, philosophy, that seems a little highfalutin. There can't be any practical application. I'm telling you, if you're looking for legal as
Yeah.
a career, philosophy is a great major.
Oh, great.
Because it's all about structuring arguments.
Structuring arguments.
Exactly.
Duh.
Exactly.
That's really cool. I love that tip. Okay, we're definitely going to talk about, your career trajectory. Okay, what was your first job that you ever had?
My first job, well, my first like real job was as a lifeguard. I was
Okay.
16 and I
Gosh,
got a
you
job
are
as,
so San
as a
Diego.
lifeguard. I'm a bit of a stereotype. Yeah, I wish I was a little tanner so I could, qualify as Mr. San Diego in some way. But yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, and what is your current job?
Current job is I am the CEO of Centurion Trial Attorneys, and I guess you can say I moonlight as a creator.
Yeah.
I always tell people I'm a lawyer and an advocate first and a content creator second. But as time goes on, I'm spending more and more time on podcasts, YouTube, just spreading the message about workers' rights.
Okay, so let's get to know you and your career path, because this is truly a fascinating career path. You guys are going to find this so inspiring. So you graduate high school and you decide to go to college.
Yes.
Why?
Well, that's what everyone told me to do.
Yeah.
And you know what's so interesting about that, Erin, is I did not want to go to college. I was really confused about where I wanted to go. I knew I wanted to be a firefighter. I
Okay.
knew that from the very beginning.
And you don't need to go to college to be a firefighter, right?
You don't. In California, you don't need it, but it
Okay.
helps a lot, especially for
Really?
some of the bigger departments. Like if
Oh.
you wanted to work for San Diego Fire Rescue or some of the small town departments, you'd
Yeah.
need to. Cal Fire, it didn't matter so much.
Okay.
But anyway, I thought college was a waste of time, and I was just doing it because I was told, nope, you got to do it. You got to have a degree.
And that was your parents telling you to do that?
It was everyone telling me, parents, school counselors, peer pressure, other firefighters who I looked up to. They're like, if you ever want to be an officer, you're going to need that bachelor's degree.
So you decided to go to college. Tell me about dropping out. What happened?
I was, man, honestly, Erin, I was depressed. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And it was getting to a point where I couldn't focus on my studies because I felt like I was wasting my time. And all I could think was, I want to be a firefighter. Why am I here?
Why am I doing this?
Why am I studying philosophy? I don't care about this. And it got to a point where I was so unhappy that I started to isolate. I was not even making friends. I wasn't fitting in like I used to. I had no interest in things. And it got to a point where I was so uncomfortable and so unhappy with my path that I just dropped out. But more accurately, I simply left and went back home, and my parents were super not happy about that.
How was that received?
Pretty badly, actually.
Yeah. They were like, what are you doing?
It went like as
You have 1
badly
year
as
left.
it could have gone, and a little worse. It didn't go well, but I immediately threw myself into EMT school. I got a
Okay.
job on
So you
an
didn't skip a
ambulance.
beat.
I didn't skip a
Right
beat.
into that.
This is part of the reason I failed all of my last semester classes when I dropped out. is I started taking fire science classes online and just
cool.
not even attending my UC Santa Barbara courses anymore.
Wait, so you can just pivot your major to be something more?
Well, no, they didn't offer it at UCSB. I signed up for a community college and under the radar was doing these fire science courses because that's what I really cared
it's your
about.
Passion, yeah.
Oh yeah, it was like the secret stash of like fire this education I was doing. And then I just left, which created a problem when I went to come back because they were like, "You're on academic probation. You had straight Fs that last semester."
Yeah, about that. I was fighting fires, okay?
Not even. I was like, I was sitting in my dorm learning about fighting fires, and I just didn't show up to the final. So, is that a problem?
So you go back, or I'm skipping. So you learn about fires online, and then you become a firefighter.
No. So this is how it works. It's different in every state and locality, but in California, you really have to have an emergency medical services background to get into fire. You have to be an EMT, at a bare minimum. Really, you need to be a paramedic. But I went to EMT school. I did an accelerated program. Got a job on an ambulance company, which was the worst job of my life.
Ambulance company?
Yeah.
Like
so it was a private ambulance company that did mostly basic life support, like routine patient transfers, would occasionally do ALS, advanced life support, but not often. Most of my work was carting people to doctor's appointments. It was extremely unglamorous.
That sounds really boring.
It's extremely boring. The pay was terrible. It was $10 an hour, which I know is a lot for some people, but in San Diego at the time, it was not a lot. And they treated us terribly. Because everyone needed to get 6 months on an ambulance to qualify to get into the fire academy.
No way around it.
So they were like, you need a letter of rec from us and you need to survive at least 6 months. So we can be horrible to you and you're just going to take it.
And you did, and you took it.
I did. I worked exactly 6 months, not a minute before. Not a minute after that. I worked my 6 months. I got my letter. I applied to fire academies. I started volunteering with the San Diego County Fire Authority. So I was volunteering as a firefighter while working as an EMT, and then I was able to get a full-time job after academy with Cal Fire.
Wow. Yeah. Wait, so I have a question. Is it competitive in Southern California to be a firefighter because there are lots of fires in Southern California?
I don't know if that's the reason it's competitive. So quick thing about the fire service industry in California, most of what we do is actually medical aids. That's why you have to be an EMT or a paramedic. 80-90% of what you do, depending on what department you're in, medical aids.
Like car accidents? Car
accidents, chest pain, someone slips in their shower, hurts their head really bad, anaphylactics, just anything that can happen medical. Because people forget when that ambulance comes and when the engine comes, we're bringing medical gear and we're there for medical aids first. But when I was doing Schedule B, that's wildland firefighting with Cal Fire, there was still a lot of medical aids, but that was the most fire I ever saw.
Wow.
That we were seeing, especially in the fire season, we were seeing some kind of fire activity every week.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So you volunteer, you get all your prereqs done essentially, and then you join. It
was very competitive. So while I was volunteering, which there was not a lot of competition to be a volunteer firefighter back then, but basically I was applying everywhere. I applied to be at LAFD, San Diego Fire Rescue, Cal Fire. Cal Fire, I was one of something like 800 or 900 applicants for 11 job openings. It was a crazy time. It was a very interesting time to try to get in. Of the 800 or 900 applicants, there were, I think, between 90 and 120 invited for interviews. And then they picked the top 20, 30 out of that. And then we went to a wildland fire academy. It was a 3-week fire academy.
So you got it. You
got into that academy, and they were like, okay, provisionally, like, let's see how you do here.
Wow.
And then they chose the top people there after interviews.
So they got some good firefighters down there.
Honestly, and talk about no one knows what they're doing. I was not the best candidate. Like the reason I got that job in my early 20s and beat out people with more experience than me was because of who I knew. I was volunteering already. So a lot of these captains knew me. And I'll tell you, Erin, what really tipped the scales for me was I did 3 months where I was basically a battalion chief's assistant. I rode with him. I cooked his meals. I did his laundry. I maintained his truck. I filed his paperwork for him. I was his maid, basically. And so I did that for 3 months, and I was just his servant boy. But then he was on the hiring committee. So then when he saw my name, he thought, you know what? This kid took care of me. I trust him.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you get it. Very competitive. You finally get it, and you're a firefighter for 4 years, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so questions about that. Any safety tips for us?
Sleep with your door closed. That helps a lot.
Sleep with your door closed.
If you live in a house with lots of vegetation and stuff, do keep defensible space around your house. We don't want lots of shrubbery going right up to your home.
Okay.
And also maintain your roof, wood shingles especially. Try to stay away from that.
Okay.
And get your fire extinguishers tested.
Okay.
There we go.
All right, that sounds good. And you also did desert rescue?
That was really fun. I did that for 2.5 years.
What is that, like stranded hikers?
Oh my gosh. So Ocotillo Wells is a state vehicular recreational area in Southern California. It's this huge desert park, and people go out there, quads, dune buggies, dirt bikes, like desert stuff. And there's trails and there's some dunes out there, huge area. So we had a CAL FIRE station out there. It had an engine, and then it had an F-150 Raptor, a water tender, and a bunch of like Ford Expeditions that had been modified to have medical gear and baskets and stuff. So I got to drive an F-150 Raptor around and pick up bikers who had got a lot of trauma, like broken legs, cracked backs, accidents. Occasionally we had people trapped, entangled in vehicles. We'd also do search and rescue operations. We would work with sheriffs and border patrol to help find lost people. And then in the off season, so winter and fall is when all the dirt bikers come out. Summer is when all the kooky, like Vision Quest, let's do ayahuasca and hang out in the mysterious caves. Yeah, the mysterious caves with no cell signal. Let's do drugs out here and see what happens. So we had to rescue a lot of kids who had bad trips. We would see that a lot. Yeah, they're fine. They would just get a little too high, and then they'd be out in the woods or the wilderness and have a little freak out. We'd have to help them.
Yeah. Oh, well, good for you. You're like, we're here. We're the good guys. Just follow us. And they're like, who are you? Okay, so you're firefighting. You're having a great time.
It's so funny. I look back at Ocotillo Wells, and I remember his captain was telling me and my friends, because we were so hungry back then. We just wanted full-time, like fully paid employment, because we were getting like $95 a day to be out there. It was not a lot of money for 24 hours of your life. And we were so focused on how uncomfortable we were. And he was like, enjoy this. Enjoy the brotherhood. Enjoy the camaraderie. This is a cool station you guys are at. And in hindsight, he was right. I do look back really fondly on those memories. It was a really good time. I really loved Ocotillo Wells Station. And
so then how do you pivot to law school? How does that like physically and logistically and financially happen?
Well, financially, I was just pressed. It just seemed that no matter what I did or how hard I worked, like everything was getting harder and harder to afford. Even in the early 2010s, this trend of unaffordability, it's not new. It's just really picked up momentum the past 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. But even then I was like, I can't afford a decent life. Like I'm sick of working so hard and not having it. But I loved my job. So I was willing to put up with that. In my head, I was like, look, I don't need money. I have the best job in the world. Where things really changed for me, this is still hard to talk about no matter how much I bring it up. Where things really changed for me is I ended up in a bad station. I had always been with guys who I clicked with, who I got along with. And then I had one bad assignment that lasted maybe 11 months. And already I was feeling some strain. I was like, okay, I'm a little financially stressed, but I'll work my way up to captain and money will take care of itself. Then I got into this station where I didn't fit in with anyone anymore. Just for whatever reason, it was a bad combination of guys. These were bitter guys who didn't really have much passion for firefighting anymore. They had tough family lives. They weren't happy people. Yeah, and they didn't like the work. Mm-hmm. And then some of them decided that because they weren't happy with themselves, I was a convenient target because I was the new guy. Gosh. Oh my God. And it just, all my favorite things about the job went away at that station, but all the pain points remained. Oh. And so it was this perfect storm where I was like, I'm not making good money. Yeah. I don't have the brotherhood I used to have. I don't have the fun I used to have. I dread going to work. I used to not be able to sleep because I was so excited to go to work. Yeah. And now I dread it. Yeah. And meanwhile, I looked around and my friends who I knew were goobers in real life were going to law school and they were having really fulfilling careers. They were going on vacations and they were doing cool work and going to trial. And I was looking over the other side and like, man, that grass looks green. Yeah. And then there was one day that really kicked it over the edge for me, if you don't mind a story.
Yes, tell us a story.
So I remember what fire? I think it was the General Fire, but I can't quite remember. It was this fire out in the East San Diego County desert. And we're hiking up this torched hill. We're doing mop-up work. And it's a long, hot hike. It's 110 degrees outside. And I'm hiking up with these guys. And there's a captain in front of me who's in his maybe late 40s. The whole hike, we're hiking up this hill to go to our assignment. This must have been 6-7 hours. The whole hike, he would not shut up. He was just complaining about his ex-wife, and she's taken to me for all I'm worth, and she doesn't care about me, and my kids don't call, and the kids. He was miserable.
Yeah.
He just complained about his family the whole time. And I'm sitting there looking at this guy and going, he's doing the same job I'm doing. He's getting about $40K a year more than I'm getting. Yeah. But he's doing the same job I'm doing, and he's miserable. And I had this like Ebenezer Scrooge Ghost of Christmas Future moment where I was like, oh my God, I don't want to be this guy.
I'm not going to be him.
And that on top of all the other discomfort I was feeling, I remember I got home from that station and I like was shook. Like this little voice was like, you need to leave.
Yeah.
This is not where you're going to be.
Time to go.
You're going to regret this. You're going to be 50 years old one day with an estranged family and you're going to regret this. And I want to be clear. The fire service is a wonderful profession. Yeah. What happened was I just perfect storm ended up in a bad unit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And so you had that moment at the top of that desert mountain. What was it? A mountain?
It sounds kind of epic when you say it that way. It was just a dry, dusty hill in East San Diego County. It's not special.
Well, I'm picturing you at the top of this mountain and you're like, I'm gonna become a lawyer. Is that what happened?
So part of where lawyer came from was we were in the midst of renegotiating our union contract at the time.
And you were like,
so do you see the workers' rights stick is coming in? It planted a seed.
Also, I just want to point out in the moment, right now, looking back, it all makes sense. But in the moment, you don't know what your next step is. And so it's cool to look back at your journey and see how you figured things out.
It's so wild that you bring that up, Erin. The whole no one knows what they're doing theme is brilliant because if you look back, it's almost like, oh, this must have been by design. Be a blue collar, working class, unionized firefighter. You helped negotiate the union. I mean, I didn't help. I was just assisting the chief with secretarial duties. I didn't have any
ironing his
impact.
Clothes and making him soup.
Yeah, but he would show me drafts and say, hey, look for typos, like do some research. I need you to find this, find that.
You got exposure to
So
it.
I got a little bit of exposure with, hey, what's it like to research, case law statutes, prior agreements and negotiate for a better deal for my fellow working, firefighters. So that really got me excited in thinking about law. And at the time, I just knew I kind of wanted to do something litigation. I didn't, at the time, I was not aware that workers' rights lawyer was a job you could have.
Was a thing?
I didn't know that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so you take the LSAT.
Yeah,
well,
so
you finished college.
I screwed up, man. If you're listening, don't do it my way. Email me. I'll show you a way better way to do this. So I did it the most back-ass-words difficult way. So I dropped out, did the fire thing, went back to, because UCSB was just natural. I'll just knock it all out in one shot. And then I went to take the LSAT, did not good, applied to a bunch of law schools. I applied to 13 schools. I got into 0.
Wow.
I did not get into a single law, including the one I ended up graduating from.
Wow.
Did not accept me the first time.
The first time. Look at that.
So you can imagine what that did to my self-esteem because I had just left a dream job that I worked really hard to get into, that I wanted my whole life. I took a shot. I left. Bombed the LSAT. I did not do good on the LSAT.
Yeah.
Probably because I was using an old study book that my sister lended me and I was driving for Uber while I was studying. It kind of didn't do so well. And then I got into no schools. And it crushed me. And I honestly spiraled into what could be called a really low point. For a period of time. I got a job at an office. I was doing some landscaping work just to make ends meet.
Wow.
And I was broke and I felt like the biggest freaking loser. I really thought that I had irreversibly ruined my life. By the way, in the back end of this, I had a maxed out credit card because as I told you, I was very dumb in my early 20s. I went on a Vegas trip with some friends and maxed it out.
No.
Idiot. Like everything you could learn the hard way, I learned the hard way.
Oh, I love this
so
for you.
I got crushing credit card debt. I couldn't get into any law schools. I bombed the LSAT and I'm working in this horrible office that I hated and it doesn't pay well enough. So on weekends, I'm doing landscaping work and I'm just like, what have I done with my life?
Oh no.
But then a little, I think I waited like a year bouncing around trying to make things happen. And then I applied to one school, Cal West, and they took me in on a 75% scholarship.
What? Wait, did you retake the LSAT?
No, I just applied again.
Oh, you just applied
And
again?
that's something that I hope other people realize is sometimes it's not you, it's the timing. I took it really personally because I was insecure.
Yeah.
So I projected me not getting into schools as some measurement of how smart I was. And it wasn't, because the same school that said no in one year said yes, and we'll give you some money to do it the next year. I actually talked to some of the admissions people and I never got a clear answer as to why that might have happened.
Yeah.
I self-published a book because I had nothing else to do. I was trying to stay sane, but that's the only change.
Wow. I mean, yeah, sometimes it really is the timing. I always tell people that. That's incredible. So you get into law school, you graduate, you pass the bar, you do the whole lawyer thing.
Passing the bar, thank God.
Yeah.
That's unpleasant. For all of you studying for it, Godspeed.
Godspeed.
I know how hard it is, and just keep your head down. You'll get there.
So I'm noticing a little trend. You've had these ups and downs, and I've noticed that during these down periods, you have quickly acted. You have pulled the trigger. So you're like, this is, you give it a chance, but then you say, this isn't a good situation. I'm moving on to something else. It seems like you're a very intuitive person. Do you think that's the case?
I don't know about intuitive. I feel like that's giving me too much credit. I'm definitely a high initiative person.
Okay.
And part of that comes from Fire. There was always this thing like, don't just sit back and do nothing.
You have to do something.
You have to do something. We were called here. It's an emergency. We don't, spoiler alert, a lot of times firefighters come to the scene and we have, we have tactics and strategies and equipment we know how to use, but we don't always have a game plan. When
you don't know what you're walking into.
Yeah, you get there, you heard, hey, engine 11, respond, car accident. You get there and it's 4 cars piled up and it's a huge mess.
Oh my gosh.
And so what we were taught is, look, just start taking action, do something, and your situation is going to change. Opportunities are going to present themselves.
Yeah.
But if you just sit and do nothing, your environment's not going to change.
I love
so
that.
even if you make a mistake, that's okay. You can recover from most mistakes, but don't just do nothing.
That's what I always teach too. The worst thing you can do is just sit in your room on your laptop, just doing nothing. Like, just do something.
Yeah, because even if the thing you do is wrong, it's going to create a change in the environment or a change in the momentum in some way that may present an opportunity. I definitely had really dark days. Very. And the thing is, you just have to do the hard thing, which is don't give up. It's people say it like it gets a lot of claps at TED Talks. It's really hard when you're really down in the depths.
It's the last thing you want to hear.
It's
like,
the last,
sure.
But yeah, really, it's all easy for you to say. You had this big break, you had that big break, you had help, but it's really, I applied to jobs, I called people, I embarrassed myself. I had people really be kind of mean to me because I was just any opportunity I could find to try to move the ball. And I can't emphasize enough just how much I embarrassed myself and put myself out there.
I always say, if the only thing you have to lose is how cool you look, you should do it. If it's just your ego at stake, who cares?
It's so funny. I think back about just all the embarrassing interactions where someone talked down to me or beat me down, especially when I was already so vulnerable because I was so insecure because I was broke and law school wasn't working out. And then people like giving me the look like, oh, like, or get out of here, that kind of stuff. But I'm glad I never let that stop me. Because what else was I going to do? Like, okay, this guy doesn't want to buy from me. This guy doesn't want to hire me. This guy doesn't want to show me what a law office looks like. I'll just go to the next guy, I guess. Because what am I going to do? Just give up? This is why sales is such an important skill.
We're going back to sales.
Yeah, it really does. Because some people, I had to teach this to my brother the other day because him and I are working together and he's, selling his services to clients. And he'd be like, hey, I sent an email, but the guy hasn't responded in 3 weeks. I'm like, why are you letting it go 3 weeks? Hit him every week.
Literally.
He's like, won't that bother him?
No,
it might.
It
might. And if it does, then he wasn't going to sign up with you anyway. Move on to the next one. But you gotta put yourself out there.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what if they're annoyed? Then they're annoyed. You're trying to pay your rent here, man. It's not that serious. You've got to get comfortable with rejection.
Yeah.
And that's so hard to do. It takes practice, especially if you like I was really fragile in those years, and every rejection, like I could feel it in my gut because things just weren't going well already. But if you can just push through rejection, oh my God, if you can keep going after rejection, the world is your oyster. Seriously. You've got so much opportunity.
I am wondering if there's a piece of advice that you got early on in your life that you're happy you ignored.
Yes, I've talked about this a lot. Remember that station, the one with the
mean guys?
the mean guy?
The
Well, they
meanies?
were mean because they were unhappy.
The meanie butts. Oh, you're right.
They were mean,
unhappy.
and at the time, I thought they were mean because I was bad. I thought maybe I wasn't as good of a firefighter as I thought I was, but I was wrong. They were just unhappy. One of them would tell me, "Succeed in silence." Succeed in silence, and that is the worst advice ever, because in this world, you have to sell yourself in some way. I'm not saying everyone has to be like a salesperson or a big content creator,
Assertive or
but
arrogant,
if
yeah.
you don't tell people about the work you are doing, how the hell are they going to know to hit you up when they need something?
Exactly.
When there's a big project at work and you've been the silent workhorse for years, even if that project is right in your zone of genius and you would really knock it out of the park and enjoy it,
Yeah.
if no one knows it's
Yeah.
the thing you're good at, you're not getting that shot. Succeed in silence. They did it because he told me that probably because he wanted to sabotage me. He was not a nice guy. But there was this idea in Fire that like, hey, we're a team and the individual doesn't
Humility.
matter.
Yeah.
Humility is good.
Yeah.
Humility is good. But putting your head down and working just in silence,
Yeah.
you're not going to get anywhere near the opportunities you deserve.
So true.
So be humble.
Yeah.
Don't be, gloating and trying to make people feel bad.
Yeah.
But definitely when you do something good, put it out there.
Totally.
Put it out there.
Totally put it out there. I mean, just err on the side, because we tend to err on the side of, I think, humility. Many of us. I mean, some of us obviously err on the side of arrogance, but if you're typically a humble person and you just kind of announce like, hey guys, I completed this great project, or I knocked this out of the park, like, people want to hear that. They want to hear about your successes and see that. That's really cool.
There's a lot of ripple effects that are good too. When you put something up, let's just put it on your Instagram and just say, hey, I'm super proud to announce we had this project, we closed this big deal, and I'm so excited. Look at this thing.
Yeah.
Pay attention to who hypes you up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because those are good friends.
Also, you don't have to say it in an arrogant way. Like, I just closed this $1 million deal. You can say, I'm so grateful to be able to have accomplished this goal of mine. Like, there are ways of phrasing things where they're not so, like, braggy. But yeah, people are always so afraid of, like, bragging or coming off arrogant in job interviews. And I'm like, you're literally there to sell yourself. So brag all you want.
Absolutely.
Okay, do you have a favorite, like, guiding quote or saying that keeps you grounded and centered?
Grounded and centered. I'm going to be honest. I'm not a very grounded and centered guy. My default is energy, initiative, and aggression.
Okay.
Which is
lawyer.
what you want in a trial lawyer. but in life, it can be a bit chaotic. But no, there's one, as someone who struggled very deeply with self-esteem issues and imposter syndrome, it's a good piece of advice, but it requires a short story. Is that okay?
Please.
Okay, so back in the early 2000s, there was this incredible violinist. His name was Joshua Bell. I don't know if you know the name. It's been a while. But he won the Avery Fisher Prize. He performed at the White House. He collaborated with Hans Zimmer. Ever heard of him? His music was featured in Angels and Demons with Tom Hanks. World-class violinist, one of the greatest musicians of all time. Well, he teamed up with the Washington Post in 2007 for a social experiment. The idea was, what if we took this extraordinary world-class musician and put him in the most ordinary of places? Let's put him in the Washington, D.C. subway. And just play and see what people do. Well, they put him in a little baseball cap, and it was only 45 minutes. He put out a little tip jar, and he played for 45 minutes. They thought that it would create like a scene, like a concert almost. What happened was even more incredible. No one gave a shit. 1,000 people went by. Only, I think, 7 stopped to listen to him. Of the 7 who stopped to listen, only 1 recognized him as one of the greatest violinists of all time. In that 45 minutes, he made $54 in tips. $20 of that came from the 1 person who recognized him.
Oh my gosh.
In a private concert, Joshua Bell, you could expect to pay hundreds, thousands of dollars a seat to listen to this man play.
Yeah.
But in that subway, he faded into white noise. No one cared.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean he's not one of the greatest musicians of all time? Yeah. I mean, it doesn't. He's still the same tremendous person. But here's the point of that. No matter how wonderful you are, no matter how great, talented, worthy, beautiful, if you are in the wrong environment, you will be treated as invisible, even disposable. And you cannot let that environment and the way those people react to you affect the way you see yourself. That advice changed my life because I struggled for a long time with how that last year of my career in the fire service went.
Yeah.
I really thought, like, am I not worthy of brotherhood? Am I not worthy of friendship? Was I a bad firefighter? Was I a bad person? These were questions I really started. Am I dumb? I thought I was dumb.
Yeah.
And then I remember hearing that story and going, you know what? Everyone loved me in the fire service until I went to that one house. Things were going fine.
Yeah.
And then, quite frankly, when I went to law school, I clicked with that. I loved law school. I had a great time. And I was just in the wrong place. And being in the wrong place and the way it makes you feel is not a reflection of your value.
Oh, I love that story.
It's a good story. I like that story.
Good one.
And if I'll say it one more time, if anyone's trying to remember, it's no matter how worthy and wonderful you are, you will be treated as ordinary, invisible, even disposable in the wrong place.
In the wrong place.
Don't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree.
Oh, yeah. I love that story. Totally worth the story break. What is one lesson that you learned the hard way, personal or professional?
Oh my gosh. There is honestly so many. It's never too late to make a change. And no matter how old you are, you're never as old as you think you are. I learned this the hard way. Erin, I could have gotten into law school sooner in a way less painful way if I had just trusted that it wasn't too late. But I hesitated so much in my 20s, and I went down so many little side quests and paths.
Yeah.
When I didn't get into law school the first time, I really took it personally.
Yeah.
I really took it personally. I thought I was the biggest loser. And I let that infect my whole life.
Yeah.
And I really started to think as the months and the years started ticking by, I thought, it's too late. I had my shot and I threw it away.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I finally learned the hard way to go to law school, because now I'm 34 years old. I've been in practice for several years. I own my own law firm, and I get to do what I love every day. I get to fight for workers.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Truly amazing how you can just pivot your career, go from being a firefighter to a lawyer. And I mean, the financial difference too. You're probably making a little bit more now than you were as a firefighter.
Just a little. Yeah. It's cool too. I'm really glad I'm grateful that I went the path I did, because just little things like the other day I went to the ATM, I needed some cash, and I get little glimmers. I'm like, just being able to go to an ATM and pull cash out, like, how privileged, what a wonderful gift that I can do that. Because I didn't have $20 to withdraw back in the day. I mean, my checking account was a nightmare. And so what's cool about going up the long way is you gain perspective, you gain gratitude.
Totally.
And every little thing that a lot of my peers who didn't have that struggle take for granted, I feel pride and beauty in it, and it makes everything just a little better.
Okay, so I want to move on now to some law questions, legal questions, which I know you're a lawyer. So guys, if you're watching this, like, don't take everything to heart, okay? Consult your own thing for your own situation.
I have a canned disclaimer if you need it.
Oh, yes.
This is general information for discussion and education only. It is not legal advice for your unique situation. Please always consult a lawyer in your area if you need help.
Like that. What he said. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so my first question here is a fun one. Do you ever have people come to you and they're all jazzed up and they think they have a case, but you're like, yeah, you don't have a case. This is a personal problem.
I try to be a little nicer about it than that as much as I can. But yes, I get that a lot.
You're like, guys, this is
part of it's because of the reach we have. We get a lot of people reaching out to us, which I'm so grateful for. I wish... I mean, we're growing. I wish my staff was bigger so that we could help everyone. Which I wish we had like a non-legal, just life advice division, you know?
You can go to that subreddit where it's like you can anonymously
something like that. Because a lot of times it's just a bad day and it's just a bad boss and it's not legally actionable. And bullying at work by itself, not illegal. You can't sue for that. So even though I believe that you're being treated unfairly and it's horrible and inexcusable, but just because of the legal framework of our country, can't actually sue your boss for that.
Okay, so say somebody comes to you and they are just like, I think I might have a case, but maybe not. What would you recommend their first step be?
Well, the first step, I mean, you could Google if you wanted to, but I warn people that Google is a terrible lawyer. ChatGPT is the only one that might be worse.
Okay.
It's a bad lawyer. And Google's a bad lawyer the same reason a toolbox is a bad mechanic.
Okay.
You know, if you don't know how to fix a you wouldn't say, oh, well, go look in the toolbox. You'll figure it out. Like,
okay.
And that's the problem with Google. Google, you can find statutes, you can find cases, but you don't learn how to use them in any way. So you can start on Google, but talk to a workers' rights lawyer. Yeah. Talk to one.
You can just Google like Maryland states' rights lawyer.
Employment lawyer.
Employment
because
lawyer.
a lot of the fear people have is, oh, I can't afford a lawyer. Well, most of us work on contingency. We don't get paid until we win.
Can you explain what contingency is?
So when you come to my office, Erin, let's say you had a really bad discrimination issue happen at your job, and we're going to represent you and we're going to help. I don't ask you for any money.
No money, y'all.
You don't write me a check. You don't give me anything. Instead, what happens is at the end, one of two things is going to happen. I'm either going to get a percentage of the settlement when we win. If we don't win, you pay nothing. Or if we go all the way for the labor board, if there's a fee shifting statute, I can get the employer to pay the fee for you.
Okay.
I can't do that for all causes of action, but some of them. So that's what works. And in the meantime, get this, I front all your expenses.
Wow.
I mean, depositions, mediations, filing fees, expert witnesses. I have one case right now. We've already spent $15,000 just getting experts and everything lined up.
Because you really believe that there's a case.
I believe in this client. She has nothing. She doesn't have anything.
Wow.
And I'm so glad that didn't stop her from talking to me.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to charge her until we win.
Yep.
And in the meantime, I'm paying these. Now, I'm going to get reimbursed for that at the end.
Yeah, for sure.
But even if, let's say the worst were to happen for this client. Let's say we go all the way to trial, defense verdict, we lose. I'm not sending her a bill. That's my risk. That's my cost of doing business. If we go all the way to trial and we're $50,000 of expenses in and we lose, that's on me. You're, and that's what I want workers to know is that I'm not unique. Yeah. Like there are a lot of firms who operate the way I do. So if you're not sure, talk to a workers' rights lawyer. Ask them if they work on contingency. Ask them what they do about expenses and ask them what happens if you lose. Because you might actually be surprised at how accessible justice really is.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, people always come to me and they're like, I would contact a lawyer, but I can't afford to. And I'm like, it doesn't cost any money to contact them.
Yeah. Can I put in a quick comment here too? One thing I see a lot of people say is they go, well, I could never take on Walmart or Amazon. They have hundreds of lawyers and they're the best in the country and they're $1 billion corporation. I'm going to look right in the camera.
Yeah.
Size does not matter. Money does not matter. The law is the law. And quite candidly, the plaintiff's attorneys like me, we make more than the defense attorneys do if you know what you're doing. So we're very experienced. The playing field is much more level than workers think it is.
Amazing. I mean, there's a whole other conversation I was thinking about when I was preparing for this conversation, and that's how your role is so important in capitalism. Not to get all deep and shit, but you guys, unions, you're all tempering this economic system that we have, and you're so important. And I know the big corporations probably don't like lawyers of your type because you guys are coming after them all the time, but you're so important for the ecosystem. You know?
I agree. And look, I'm not an idiot. There's definitely ambulance chasers and scummy attorneys out there, you know.
Yeah.
Every once in a while I'll say something that people say, oh, you're criticizing HR. Well, what about lawyers? Lawyers are bad too. I'm like, yeah, a lot of lawyers are really bad people. Watch out. Not all lawyers are your friend. But generally the ethical, really true believers on the workers' rights side, extremely important. Yeah. Because the scales in our country are so heavily tipped in the employers. Everything. They pay a lower effective tax rate. They've got more representation in Congress with lobbying and donations. They have more money. It's just, they even seem to have the media on their side. Everything seems to be working class people's fault these days. Yeah. So it's really nice being able to step up. Now, I get accused of being biased and all of that, to which I respond, yeah, I'm absolutely biased in favor of working people. I'm an advocate. And what I tell people is they're like, well, tell us the employer's side. And I'm like, I don't need to be the devil's advocate because the devil has enough advocates. Okay. There are whole $1 billion law firms that represent these guys. I'm fighting for the little guy.
Yeah. You're the scales. It's just about having
We're
the
here
scales
to tip the scales, and that's why I'm so grateful that my platform has grown the way it is, because now the working class, the employees, they actually have a rallying point. It's like, all right, all the big firms and big corporations, they've kind of got their corner, but we've got a couple of really loud voices with some pull. Yep. You know, and it's exciting being part of that team.
You can't be a lawyer and be a people pleaser, can you?
No. You absolutely cannot be afraid of conflict. You cannot be afraid of people not liking you. Yeah. If you have a problem being confrontational, I don't know how you're going to make it in litigation. Yeah. For me personally, I actually have to actively work on being not confrontational. Like I have to do exercises because to me, it doesn't feel most of the time like conflict. It doesn't feel angry or hateful. It's just how I am.
Yeah.
I just can't help but
It's your
push back
nature.
sometimes. Yeah.
Makes you a good lawyer.
But to be clear, yeah, just because there's a myth that like, oh, if you're good at arguing, you'll be a good lawyer. Here's what I want to be clear about. You can't be afraid of confrontation. You have to be a little adversarial. You have to be a little pushy.
Yeah.
But you also need to know when it's time to back off and collaborate. Because if you cannot communicate effectively with your opposing counsel, if you can't be reasonable, be cooperative, throw them a bone once in a while, you're not going to be an effective litigator. Because a lot of the best advocacy that comes with my clients is we push and we fight hard, but there's also times when it's like, all right, guys, look, let's make a deal happen. What do you guys need to settle this case? You know, what do we need to do?
Let's meet in the middle here, guys.
That kind of attorney is going to get more effective results more often than just the bulldog attorney myth.
I'll go after your employer and make you money.
You're not going to get effective results most of the time that way. Yeah.
Okay, so some quick questions that people tend to have. And I know you can't give quick answers because it's all situational.
I'll do my best.
Generally, if you quit a job and they're withholding your last paycheck, what can you do?
Couple of things. I mean, depending on where you are, you can file a claim with the Department of Labor. Because there's a myth that if you like quit without notice or if you're fired for a cause that you forfeit that last check. And that's not true. You've earned all of that money still. So you could file something with the DOL, but in my experience, it's better to talk to a wage and hour attorney.
Okay.
By the way, workers' rights lawyers like me, we do wage and hour law.
Okay.
And it'll be the same thing. Charge you a contingency, make the employer pay at the end. If you're in California, we have a unique rule that's kind of fun.
California.
It's fun. If you are fired or laid off, you're entitled to your full final wages on that day.
Oh.
If they don't do it, then a penalty accrues equal to 1 day of wages for every calendar day that the payment is late, up to 30 days. So I've had cases where clients were owed like $500 and then out of spite, meanness, bigotry, revenge, whatever it is, the employer doesn't pay them and then they hire me. Well, now your $500 payment just became a $30,000 settlement.
Wow.
Because it's a domino effect. We're like, okay, well, here's all the money that she was owed, which in any state you would have been owed that. Plus some attorney's fees, plus some interest, plus the waiting time penalty. And oh, by the way, we investigated you and found some issues with your payroll. You have some other statutory violations. So, and this is why people hate lawyers. So now when you could have paid this person the $500 you owed them, now you owe $30,000 because...
Just give them their last paycheck, guys.
Well, they invited confrontation and they're surprised it went badly. Because what I tell people is if you have a toxic workplace or a place that plays with your pay, where there's smoke, there's fire. Definitely. Usually the violation that you the employee who catches a violation, there's usually other violations happening. So I very rarely sue an employer for just one cause of action. It's usually 7, 8, 9 because we find other things.
Okay, next one. If you quit your job due to your workplace being, quote, toxic, or you can't work there anymore, can you claim unemployment?
If it's literally toxic, like you have a toxic spill, dangerous chemicals, and it's so urgent that reporting to OSHA would not be a practical option, then yeah, you could have something called a constructive discharge claim where you could perhaps get the unemployment. So here's how this breaks down, and I'll do it as fast as I can. Generally speaking, when you resign, unemployment's not going to happen.
Yeah.
If it's an urgent safety issue, like literal toxic spill, sexual harassment, like you've been groped at work, things like that, it's usually more available. Okay. You would have to show that the work environment was so abusive, so intolerable that any reasonable person would have felt compelled to quit despite a sincere desire to continue working and a good faith effort to preserve the employment relationship. Now, that's not the rule in every state. That's the general breakdown.
Got it.
But as for a toxic workplace, not literal. A toxic workplace isn't illegal. A lot of times when people say a toxic workplace, they're thinking like a hostile work environment. Well, a hostile work environment is a legal term. So when we say hostile work environment, we don't mean just bullying or just bad energy or rumors or you got a mean boss. We mean an environment where severe or pervasive conduct directed at you is so oppressive, abusive that it creates a hostile environment. Now, when we talk about severe, we're talking so outrageous it has no place in civil society. Great example, I have a race discrimination case with a manager who liked to say the N-word to my client. That creates a hostile work environment. I've had others where a single incident did it. I had a client where the boss actually grabbed her on her butt.
Do they have to document these?
It helps. When you have something like this happen, I tell people the paper trail is your biggest weapon. Submit in writing complaint of what happened. Keep it short, keep it factual.
Yeah.
And keep a copy for yourself. Because here's what happens in that. Wait, the complaint itself is evidence. Even if they don't respond to it, even if they try to say you're wrong, it's still a piece of evidence that yes, it establishes what's going on. And something else happens. Let's say you feel like it's a toxic work environment. You feel it's a hostile work environment. It's just not right, but you're not sure it's illegal. Well, if you submit a complaint and you say, hey, HR, my boss keeps calling me chubby. He says I need to hit the gym. He says I'm too fat.
Gosh.
That is not a protected class in most situations. Being overweight is not a protected class. But if you submit a complaint like, hey, I feel I'm being harassed, I'm being targeted by my boss, I need help. Well, now you've made a protected complaint.
Okay.
So depending on the state, depending on the situation, the complaint itself is protected. Even if you were mistaken about whether the underlying activity was illegal.
Got it.
Because it's not, the employee spotted illegal activity. Yeah. The employee had a good faith belief the activity was illegal.
Got it.
Not the standard in all states, but generally that's the rule.
Got it. So if you guys are running into issues at work, just write a little note, just document something.
Document.
You have templates too on your account of stuff to send.
I do. Yeah. I put templates on. I try to do it every so often because big mistakes I see people make when they have a problem at work. Either they don't report, big mistake, because now there's no proof. They report over the phone.
Oh, no written
They
proof.
make a report to HR and don't keep a copy for themselves. I'm telling you, if you sue your employer, the company server is going to mysteriously be wiped clean.
Oh no, where did it go? That's so weird.
Yeah, do not trust your paper trail in someone else's hands. You got to control it yourself. Okay. And then other mistakes is, over the phone, face to face, not documenting. Those are big mistakes.
Can you ask your coworkers how much money they make?
You can ask anyone anything. But here's the thing that happens. A lot of companies say that discussing wages is a fireable offense. Some employers even told my clients that it's a crime, like that it violates some kind of
jail.
Breach of contract, NDA. Yeah, crazy. Gosh. Well, here's the rule. So under the National Labor Relations Act, most private sector employees are free to discuss pay and work conditions, okay? We call this engaging in concerted activities. So the National Labor Relations Act, it applies to most private sector people. It does not apply to most government employees, agricultural workers, and some supervisors. So talk to an attorney if you're not sure, but 90% probability it applies to you, even if you're not in a union, because it protects workers' ability to bargain together, whether they're in a recognized union or not. And essential to that is discussing your pay. Because discussions about pay is how you make sure discrimination isn't happening. Yeah. It's how you check the female employees being paid 73 cents on the dollar compared to their male counterparts, people of color being paid less than white counterparts for the same job.
Yeah, you have to keep in mind, there's a lot of things that go into your wage.
There's a lot of factors that go into it, but this is how we figure out, like, wait, Erin, okay, so you have a master's degree, a PhD, Ryan is here, he has kind of a bachelor's degree. Why is Ryan making 20K more than you? You're doing the same job, and Erin, you're more qualified.
Yeah.
This enhances your bargaining power. So all this goes back. Engaging in those concerted activities, discussing pay, it is protected. I recommend documenting it if you can. And if you're fired or punished for it, then you might have a cause of action for retaliation and wrongful termination.
And then last specific question, I'm just going to abuse you while you're here and get all this free advice while you're here.
Yeah.
People message me more and more these days about PIPs. Can you tell us about PIPs and what they are?
Yes, the old performance improvement plan. Okay, so hot take. I've gotten some pushback on this, but because look, I'm not saying all employers are bad. I'm not saying all PIPs are bad, but I'm saying generally speaking, most jobs are at will. If they don't like you, they'll just fire you. But if they're putting in a PIP, it's because they want to let you go and they don't want to look over their shoulder and see that.
They want to build a case.
Yeah, they want to build a case. It's for their own security. So if you are on a PIP, I really recommend, first of all, try to comply with it if you can. Some PIPs set impossible standards on purpose. I see that a lot with disability discrimination cases and pregnancy cases. I see them put in, like I had an outside saleswoman and they told her she had to cover a certain zone, hit so many calls a day. And with her pregnancy, especially, it was impossible. They did it because they didn't want to fire her for being pregnant, but they wanted to show, she didn't meet the PIP standard. So we didn't fire her because she was pregnant. We fired her because she couldn't do 30 sales calls in a day. Door to door, by the way, not on the phone. Door to door. Oh, that's why.
Crazy.
So if you're on a PIP, start looking for work. Really, you should be throwing your resume out there and looking for work periodically anyway. Even if you like your job, throw some stuff out there. Just see what your market value is.
Yeah.
At worst case scenario, nothing happens. Best case, you get an offer. But yeah, if you're on a PIP, try to comply with it if you can. If it's unreasonable, you should maybe tell them like, hey, happy to engage with the PIP.
Yeah.
Going to work on this. There's some standards here that I have concerns may not be possible with the resources I have, and be specific about that.
Yeah.
That way, if the PIP is bad faith, it's designed to set you up to fail, we at least have a paper trail that establishes, hey, there is at least some controversy here as to whether these standards are possible or not.
Yep. Is there anything else legally that you get a lot of questions about that you would just like to clear up with people?
Oh my God, yes. Let's clear this up right now. At will employment.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that.
I'll never forget in the early days of TikTok, there was this video that came up and a creator was like, we're going to talk about at will. And most people are at will. And it means you can be fired for anything and there's nothing you can do. Misinformation. Oh my God. So here's the deal about at-will employment. At-will employment doesn't mean you can be fired for anything. It means you can be fired for any legal reason. And yes, no reason is technically a legal reason.
Totally.
And yes, an employer can fire you and not say why.
Totally.
Or they can say it's poor performance or whatever reason they want. Now, that's their side of the story.
Yep.
Even if your employer refuses to say the reason, even if they make up a bogus reason. And now let's talk about right to work.
Right to work. I was just going to ask you about
because
right to work.
if you're, especially in the South, it's become kind of slang. You know, they'll say, oh, it's a right to work state.
Right
so if
to
I don't
work.
like the color of your boots, you're out of here. And a lot of blue collar workers listening might have heard that. About half the states are right to work states, and right to work laws only mean that union membership can't be required for your job. Now, it just so happens by pure coincidence and coincidence alone that every right to work state is also an at will state.
Okay.
So there's been this confusion that, oh, right to work means I can be fired for anything. No. Right to work is your union rights.
Yeah, they're totally
at will is
separate.
They're completely unrelated. They have no relation to each other.
Okay, we cleared that up.
Yeah.
Glad we cleared that up. One last question for you here. For any business owners watching,
Oh, yeah.
what are some tips you have for them to legally protect themselves from people like you?
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
well, no, it's a fair question. So I do want to clear up a couple of things, if that's okay.
Do it.
I am a business owner.
Yes,
I am a
you are.
for-profit business owner, and I am an employer. I've got 9 people on my team apart from me. So some people are like, oh, one day you'll have employees and
You're
you'll
like,
understand. It's like,
I do.
wait, one day I'll have employees and then I'll decide stealing from them is, what are you even talking about?
Exactly. Just be a good business owner.
So the best way to protect yourself, there's the obvious things, hire an HR professional, hire a lawyer like me to advise you on how to be compliant, but that costs a lot of money. You can also get insurance. There's EPLI, Employment Practices Liability Insurance, in case you make a mistake. But there's a much cheaper and easier way than all of that. Be nice.
Just be nice.
Just be nice, because here's the thing. You're going to screw up. I am one of the top labor law experts in the country, and I make mistakes because labor law is complex and we're running businesses, and it's not like I just sit all day and think, wow, how do I comply with everything in the state and be perfect? Stuff happens. But if you are kind to your staff, if you're empathetic, if you recognize that their life in the office with you is just a small part of their lives, and they have rich, meaningful lives outside of the office, and you, their boss, are not their life boss.
Yeah.
And you just treating people with kindness and respect. They're going to let the little things go.
Yeah.
A lot of times, especially for wage and hour violations, employees come to me because they have been abused, kicked down, spit on, just treated like dirt by a boss.
Yeah.
And then the boss screws up and the employee goes, you know what? You've been cruising for a bruising for a long time, boss man. And now I've got you. But if you're a nice person, employees are going to be like, hey, you know what? Erin's a really good boss. Yeah, she messed up my pay on my last check, but she did her best to fix it, and I respect her. I'm not going to sue Erin. I love Erin. Just being nice is going to get you pretty far.
I love that. Okay, guys, be nice to each other. Okay, so the last thing that we do on the show is we co-author a bit of advice together. So I have viewers and listeners write in conundrums. And this is one that I've been hearing a lot lately. I don't know if just a lot of people are pregnant right now, but this is something that I've been getting a lot of messages about. So it's from Kate R. in Seattle. And she says, Dear Erin and Ryan, I desperately need your help. I'm on the job hunt and I'm 6 months pregnant. I have a second round interview with a company and they want me to do it in person. My first interview was virtual So I didn't tell them I was pregnant since I didn't want it to work against me. But now I obviously can't hide my baby bump. I know I'm qualified for the job and I really want to get it. But when do I tell them I'm pregnant? Do I hide it or should I just tell them right now? Help.
Yeah, this is a tough situation.
She's
So I want to be
feel it
clear.
out.
There is no silver bullet secret maneuver I can do that will force them to recognize your humanity, not discriminate, and give you the job, and everything's going to be sunshine and roses.
Yeah.
This is admittedly, Kate, this is a high risk situation, and we can't guarantee any specific outcome. In my experience and in my opinion, and someone can disagree with me, I would say something in writing to them like, hey, very excited for the in-person interview. Just so you know, I'm 6 months pregnant. Do you have parking options? Where's the best place for me to be? You know, you're not asking for any special treatment, but you're giving them a heads up.
Yeah.
And now we have established in the paper trail that you are pregnant. They know you are pregnant and you're qualified and you're doing the interview. And now if you're wrongfully denied the employment, we've got a little more ammo if we want to pursue action that way. Yeah. But also think of it this way. Like, I know it's scary. They're going to see. If you're showing at 6 months, they're going to see. And it's better to have the paper trail establishing it in writing than for them just to say, oh, we went another direction. And it's an opportunity to see what kind of people they are. And if you want to work with them, because if they ghost you or they freak out that you're pregnant, you don't want to work with them anyway, even if you couldn't sue for it. It's a great integrity test. But if they're like, oh my gosh, congratulations, here's the best place to park and bathrooms are over here if you need to go, and we're so excited to see you, like, now you know you're with good people. Yeah. And when in doubt, talk to a workers' rights lawyer. Yeah. And in that situation, you might find a lot of lawyers who want to charge a couple $100 for the advice session, which I know sucks, especially as job seeking, but you might, like my firm, if you're having a bit of trouble, even if you don't have a case, we'll give you 30 minutes and just say, hey, generally, here's what we think. And if it gets worse, give us a call.
Cool. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. That was excellent advice. It's just so nice to hear from a lawyer who actually knows these laws inside and out.
Well, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know those things.
Well, I would say you know how to litigate. Yeah. But in general, none of us know what we're doing. Yeah. Where can people follow and connect with you? Oh, thank you for asking. So I am at Attorney Ryan, one word, on TikTok and Instagram. I'm at Ryan Stygar, RyanStygar on YouTube. Okay. I'm also on Threads. I don't really do Twitter anymore. Oh, yeah. Me neither. I haven't logged into Twitter in a long time. And then Apple, Spotify, anywhere you enjoy podcasts, tune into the Working Class Podcast with me, Attorney Ryan. Yeah. Okay, awesome. And what's on the horizon for you? Oh, I'm so excited. We are still working on the details, but I do have a book coming out with a major publisher. No. I'm so excited. That's so cool. I can't say too much about it yet. We're still in the early production. I'm like, look how excited I'm getting. I know. It is a comprehensive guide about your rights at work. And we go into like 40 different areas of law with stories. And it's very interesting. It's not boring at all. It is the most exciting cases I've worked on, real stories, real cases with names and dates changed to preserve anonymity. But it's your go-to reference. I'm so excited about that. I'm shocked that it doesn't exist. I'm so excited for that book. Everybody go follow Ryan on everything. Connect with him. He creates fantastic content. And thank you so much for being here and coming all the way from San Diego to gloomy New York. I hope it was worth it. It was so worth it. Thank you for having me.